You are now listening to the RHOPod, a Real Housewives recap. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RHOPod, a Real Housewives recap. I'm your host, Nick, and I thought it would be a great idea to make this trailer episode to introduce myself, spout off my Housewives credentials, talk about why I wanted to do this podcast, talk about the release schedule, and just a bunch of other housekeeping stuff before we actually talk about the things that you care about, which are the Housewives. So here are a few things about myself. My name is Nick, I'm 22 years old, and I've been watching reality TV ever since I was at least 8 years old. I remember my first reality TV show that I've ever watched, and again, I was 8 years old, so I was too young to watch or even pay attention or even know about this show. But Rock of Love with Bret Michaels, season 2 on VH1. I would tune in every week. Me and my sister, we would tune in every week to watch it. You know, again, it was inappropriate. It was not something that kids should be watching, but I was hooked. I was obsessed. I was there in front of the TV every Sunday. I remember it would come on every Sunday night. And when it was announced that Rock of Love was renewed for season 3, I was like, yes, there could be a Rock of Love season 27. And I would be like, yep, I'm watching it. I'm getting in front of my TV and I'm going to watch it. I'm going to enjoy it. So I've been watching reality TV for a very long time. I grew up during the Of Love era on VH1. You know, Rock of Love, Flavor of Love, I Love New York, Real Chance of Love. Love, 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 like Teresa would say. I loved that era of reality TV. And once that era ended, I felt like, okay, what more is there to watch? What more is there to explore? And then I discovered The Real Housewives. Now, I've been watching The Real Housewives for about a decade now. And the first season, the first show that I really ever paid attention to that I ever watched all the way through was Atlanta season 5. And I think for anyone who wants to start watching The Real Housewives, that is a perfect place to start. Because let me tell you, sometimes the first seasons of The Real Housewives, they're boring. Let's face it, they're boring. You know, they're setting up the dynamic, which they need to do that. You can't just start off a show with a big bang. You know what I mean? But there's some seasons that you can skip. There's some seasons that you don't need to watch. When it comes to Atlanta, though, I would suggest going back and watching and starting from the first season, because Atlanta is one of those franchises that really, it just builds. And each season it seems to be getting better and better. Now, recently, I don't know if people would have that same sentiment. Personally, I love this recent season of Atlanta, but I know some people have their own opinions. That's okay. We're allowed to have... They're your opinions, as Tamara would say. You can have your own opinion, but I think Atlanta is a perfect place to start out if you want to watch The Real Housewives. And, you know, I remember around this time when season 5 of Atlanta was premiering, I think season 4 of New Jersey had just ended. And I remember, you know, it was Take Down Teresa Gate. You know, it was Stripper Gate. It was, you know, everyone just harping on Teresa with her green Christmas tree dress. And, you know, I was like, why do these women hate Teresa so much? Granted, I only watched the reunion of season 4 of New Jersey at that time, so I didn't understand why everyone hated Teresa. Why not one of these women could like Teresa? I didn't get it. So of course I had to go back and watch it, and granted, I'm still a Teresa stan. Yes, I'm a tree hugger. I think that's what they call them. Yes, I am. I'll admit it. I'm not the biggest fan of Melissa Gorga, I'll admit it. we'll get into all that when New Jersey comes back on. So that's just to let you know how I feel. Um, so I was watching Housewives regularly, and in the recent years, I kind of just started slacking off, and I haven't been watching them as consistently until there was something called, I think it was the COVID-19 pandemic happened. And I think when COVID-19 first began, I feel everyone was like looking for something to do. You know, we're stuck in the house. What are we going to do? What are we going to watch? And people gravitated towards the Real Housewives. And when the pandemic first began, I was the exact same. I was like, I remember watching these women. And then I don't know why I stopped watching. I guess I got burnt out on it. I guess I got tired of it. And that's on me. I shouldn't have never done that. That was a horrible thing to do. And I apologize to those women. It was an awful thing to do. And I'm so glad that I am now back into this realm of watching Real Housewives regularly. Like, it's must-see TV for me now. And it was like that before, and then it kind of just kind of got... I guess I really did get burned out, and then I came back, and it's great. And I feel like we're living in such a... Some people would say that we're living in another golden age of Housewives, and, maybe so. Maybe so, because I don't remember Housewives being as popular as it is now. I feel like it's always been popular, but it's not as popular as it is right now. So that's why I decided to make this show. I know a lot of people in my life who watch The Housewives, but they don't want to talk about The Housewives all the time. If it was up to me, every conversation that we would have would be all about, oh my gosh, did you watch Beverly Hills and how Erica and Renna were acting a mess towards Garcelle? Yeah. I could go on and on and on. And I've been wanting to do a podcast for a few months now, but I just never had the courage. I never had the motivation, the drive to just go ahead and just do it. And now I'm doing it, and I feel really great. I'm dipping my feet into the water, and it feels nice. And please bear with me. I feel like I'm going to sound out of breath. I feel like I'm going to, be breathing a lot. I feel like I'm going to be just ranting and raving and talking fast. Please bear with me. I promise I will get better as time goes on. So yeah, I think that's why I'm qualified to have this podcast. So another reason why I've been so hesitant to start this podcast is I could not come up with a good name to save my life. All these Housewives podcasts and all these Bravo related podcasts have a good name. Watch What Crappens Live, funny. The Slut Pig podcast, hilarious. And then there's like obvious ones like Mention It All, or, That's My Opinion, and, like iconic quotes that they turn into titles. I, for the life of me, could not figure out a title. I couldn't. You know what? There's only one title other than this one that I have right now that I could come up with, and it is so bad. And I was pitching it to people around me, and they were like, "Oh, this sounds good." And I think, how when someone says something like, "Oh, that sounds good," or "Oh, that's really good," so they won't hurt your feelings? I feel like it was that. The idea that I had was the Ramoning After, where I would recap the Housewives the morning after, and I tried to put on like a spin of like Ramona's name, like the Ramoning After instead of the morning after. It was stupid. It sounds dumb. It sounds erotic. Like the Ramoning Hour, like that. No, that's not what this podcast is. Sorry, not judging any podcast that's like that, but that's not what this podcast is. So if you're looking for the Ramoning After, you're just gonna have to go somewhere else, because that's not over here. Um, so I couldn't figure out a good name. And then I thought, okay, when people tweet about the Housewives, like for Atlanta, they use the hashtag RHOA. Some people pronounce it as RHOA. For Beverly Hills, it's RHOBH, Beverly Hills, or Robe. You know, some people call New York Roni. Potomac, you could call it ROP or Rope. You know, they say row and then whatever the initial of the city is afterwards. And I thought, RHOPod, because it's a Real Housewives podcast. But then I worried about, okay, what is the O going to stand for? Because Real Housewives of podcast doesn't make sense. So I figured, okay, what's something that starts with an O that could work? Got it. Real Housewives oriented podcast. When I came up with that, let me tell you, it might not be the best name, but it's a name, and it's a unique name. It's a name that I came up with myself. And like, I was just like, I gotta do this. Because there were other quotes that I was considering. I was considering Baby Gorgeous podcasts, but that doesn't really fit the theme, fit the aesthetic. I love Lisa Barlow, but you know, it's like, that just, to me, it doesn't work for me. I'm not saying it can't work for anyone else, but it does not work for me. So that's why I decided the name RHOPod. You can call it, I called it the Real Housewives Oriented Podcast. You can just call it RHOPod. I'll probably say, like I think in the intro I say RHOPod, a Real Housewives recap. Because that's what this podcast is. I'm going to be recapping, I'm going to be reviewing the latest episodes of The Housewives, and just talking about my opinions. Because, you know, you asked for them, right? You asked for my opinion, so I'm just going to give them to you. So that's what this podcast is all about. Let's see. Did I cover everything? I think I covered everything. Oh, release schedule. So I'm planning on putting out episodes every Friday morning. Mainly because, like, right now, for example, Atlanta, Beverly Hills, and Dubai are all airing right now. So I figured it would give me a chance to watch all three of those and then recap it that Friday. Now, let's say if there's ever 4 Housewives shows going on at the same time, I might split it up. So the schedule is subject to change. For now, I will put out an episode every Friday. Every Friday morning, there will be an episode. That is subject to change. I sound so professional when I say that. Subject to change. I feel I'm a mess, sorry. And subject to change. So yeah, new episodes every Friday. I'm going to be recapping. I'm literally going to be taking notes. I feel like I'm doing homework when I'm doing this show. And I'm going to be talking about like pretty much a scene by scene breakdown. Although, you know, I'm not going to be talking about every single scene because that would just be boring. And I don't want to put you through that. And frankly, I don't want to do that. We're going to be recapping. I'm going to be telling you how I feel because I do have opinions about these women and I feel like they need to be said. I said what I said. I feel like I'm going to have to reiterate that every single episode. And by the way, before I really launch the podcast, I want to say this. I'm never going to sit on this show and be like, oh, I hate this woman. I don't know these women. None of us know these women. We see these women for 43 minutes. That's, you know, the whole episode minus commercials. We see these women for 43 minutes every week. I don't know these women's lives. I don't know, you know, I'm only judging what you give me, as Karen Huger would say. So if I don't think you come across favorable, you don't come across favorable. It's a TV show. We're all going to have our own opinions, but I never wanted to be like, oh, I hate this woman, because I feel like hate is such a strong word, and I don't know these women. So I'm not going to sit here and say I hate these women. So I don't want any of that discourse happening, because it's really not that serious. It's really not that deep. Okay? I love these shows too, but it's really not that deep. And I just wanted to say that, because I never want to come across that I'm, just hating on someone, or, I have my opinions just like everyone else has their opinions. And you'll get it. I feel like if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, then maybe this isn't the show for you. However, I would love for you to stay around. So yeah, I think I covered the basics. I introduced myself. Hopefully I haven't annoyed you. This was supposed to be 6 minutes, and it's now, I'm recording this segment of the podcast, and so far it's 15 minutes. So I didn't plan on that, but I think it's great just to introduce myself and for you to get a feel of how I talk, how I am, and I think this was a good idea. I wasn't going to make an episode like this. What I was going to do, ideally, was I was going to put out the first episode today. I took notes on Atlanta, and I was going to take notes on Beverly Hills and Dubai, but for the life of me, I could not find a microphone that works. And I just got this microphone. I literally just got this microphone yesterday. So, that's why I couldn't put out an episode. Like, I could have put out an episode, but the sound would be so awful. You would not like it. I would not like it. And I want to put out good quality episodes. Like, I don't want to put out junk. I really want to take my time and invest in this and really give you a good episode, give you a good show. And I hope that you see that as time goes on. Again, I'm going to start out sloppy, but I'm sure I'm going to get better the more times I do this. So yeah, I think I've covered everything. I explained the name. I explained my qualifications of me hosting the show. I talked about the format. I talked about the release schedule every Friday morning. Again, that might change when, there's like 4 Housewives shows going on at the same time. I'll let you know when they're changing. Oh, speaking of that, social media. Follow me on Twitter at RHOPodcast. That's RHO Podcast. Follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram as well. The handle is also RHOPodcast. RHO Podcast. I'll be live tweeting episodes. I will let you know any updates on, whether I have to change the schedule of an episode, or whether I'm not doing an episode that week, or, if the schedule happens to change, that's where I'll update you. And I'll also update you in a latest episode of the RHOPod. I'll keep you guys informed. And now I think that's everything. Now I think I've covered everything. So, again, this was only supposed to be 6 minutes long. It's now probably going to be 20 minutes long. Sorry about that. But I figured it's better to go ahead and get this introductory stuff out of the way so we can just get into the episode next week. So, thank you guys for watching. If you like this trailer episode, please follow the podcast. The podcast I know right now is on Spotify, Anchor, on Stitcher. It's on Google Podcasts. I'm working on Apple Podcasts. It will be on Apple Podcasts. I'm working on it at the moment. But give it a follow. Follow me on all social media. If you can, I know a lot of people say this and it sounds so desperate, But can you give me 5 stars? Oh, I feel so cringy begging for that. Like, can you guys give me 5 stars? Please. Apparently it helps with the algorithm and it helps me get more listeners, and the more listeners, the better. The bigger the audience, the better. So, yeah. Now that's everything. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I hope that you stick around. I hope that you find this to be entertaining. I hope you find it to be funny. I hope I haven't annoyed you too much. And if I did, maybe this show wasn't for you in the first place. So it's better that you know that now than later. But please stick around. Please do. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the first episode of the RHOPod, a Real Housewives recap. Thank you for listening to the RHOPod, a Real Housewives recap. The first official episode will premiere next Friday, August 26th, and will be available on more audio platforms coming soon.